Okay. Good morning to all in attendance here at the IDFC Pavilion. Also, a very warm welcome to all in attendance virtually, wherever you are in the world. My name is Marcus Schnall. I am the fund manager of the Southeast Asia Energy Transition Partnership, ETP, which is managed by the United Nations Office for Project Services. Today, I have the honor to welcome all of you to the Southeast Asia Energy Transition Dialogue. The particular discussion today will focus on challenges and opportunities to a low-carbon pathway in the region. Before we dive into this key topic, I would like to convey a particular thank you to the International Development Finance Club, IDFC, especially our donors, AFD, for kindly hosting us today. IDFC members are aligned with and work together to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the goals agreed under the Paris Climate Accords. These are shared goals with ETP. As for today's agenda, unfortunately, Ms. McKean from the IKEA Foundation was not able to join us. Nevertheless, we will still be hearing from a very interesting mix of speakers from the countries and the development partner side. Please do provide your questions via the chat function or reach out to us separately, and we'll be sure to address any of the queries you may have. At this stage, I would now like to introduce Ms. Manelle Ait Sahlia. She serves as Deputy Head of the Energy Department of the Agence Française de Développement. A particular reason why we are excited to have Ms. Ait Sahlia as part of today's discussion is that she has commenced her role as Chair of the ETP Steering Committee during September this year. She will be given the keynote speech for this event. Ms. Sahlia, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us in this side event. To start, I wanted to highlight a few notes. Southeast Asia region is facing key challenges to engage into a low-carbon pathway. There is currently a unique window of opportunity to tackle the barriers and facilitate efforts towards sustainable and climate-resilient energy systems. Governments, of course, are the decision makers, and they will have to undertake sound policy planning and strong political action. But engaging the region towards low-carbon development pathway will also require stakeholders' involvement from all parts. Collaborating with the civil society and the private sector, including through philanthropies, will then be essential to achieve energy transition. Partnering with philanthropies, more specifically, will be critical. The key role of philanthropies was emphasized at the occasion of the 2017 One Planet Summit. Through the launch of the Philanthropist Task Force, a new collaborative approach was then proposed and led to the establishment of the Energy Transition Partnership, ETP. The Etp Value Proposition is to provide a unique space of coordination between donors and philanthropies with the objective to engage government action towards energy transition in the Southeast Asia region, prioritizing Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. AFD is proud to be a strong supporter of the partnership, which illustrates our vision to be an integrator leveraging on both our own financing instruments and our partnerships. 4 years after its launch, the partnership has been able to showcase the value of bringing together governments and philanthropies. Such collaboration led to combining various sources of fundings and modalities of intervention, while public donors and philanthropies may be tempted to work in silos. Through the initiative, both medium-term and long-term perspectives they are constantly considered. This leads to continuously appreciate a triple dividend approach involving economic, environmental, and social returns. The partnership also brings value through the variety of modalities of intervention of its partners. It therefore enables innovative approaches through a combination of, I would say, pragmatic, on-the-ground, shorter-term programs, which are typically supported by philanthropies, and at scale, longer-term initiatives involving government bodies and high-level decision makers, which are typically supported by public donors. This unique combination facilitates the scaling up of innovative pilot programs and initiatives. It also helps bringing them to the highest levels of policy dialogue. It is also important to mention that beneficiary countries, namely Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam, are fully embarked in the partnership through dedicated MOUs and advisory panels. ETP has been able to involve governments and regional decision makers in its governance, and this has led to solutions based on collective intelligence and balanced trade-offs. Reaching net zero carbon energy systems will require a holistic approach, combining technical assistance, investments, and policy dialogue. ETP shall address all the segments of these actions. The partnership raised to date $40 million and aims at doubling this amount, at least in technical assistance. ETP also aims at promoting coordination with partner-aligned programs such as the CASE program. ETP will focus on policy alignment with climate commitments, de-risking renewable energy and energy efficiency investments, sustainable resilient infrastructure, and knowledge and awareness building. But above all, it is critical for the partnership to use the current momentum on coal associated with moratoriums recently announced in the region. I'm obviously making reference here to the announcement made by Indonesia and the Philippines, and more globally in the region, the decision announced by China to stop building coal-fired power plants abroad. Coal still represents a substantial portion of Southeast Asia's energy mix. ETP will therefore have to dedicate a major portion of its effort to coal phase-out. ETP aims at being an efficient platform channeling both private and public funds throughout coal phase-out. Also, just and fair transition programming and addressing the issues falling onto those standing to lose from coal phase-out is an essential topic which ETP has already started to address. Decommissioning existing coal power plants and replacing them with renewable energy facilities is a topical component of a comprehensive energy transition program. The starting points of the paths to net zero energy systems in Southeast Asia may differ from a country to another. Therefore, a coal phase-out program requires not only a broad approach, but also a specific understanding of the economic and social implication. Coal phase-out and its socio-economic implications is a major axis of AFD's energy strategy. We are at AFD therefore thrilled to support ETP in its implementation of such just and fair transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manelle, very much for these remarks. We will now move to exploring the country angle of this operation. The aim of this next segment is to showcase the most imminent challenges and opportunities for energy transition in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. This session will include remarks by a group of distinguished officials and recognized experts from each respective country. We would like to start with Vietnam. Mr. Nguyen Hong Dien, the Minister of Industry and Trade of Vietnam, will guide us on energy transition challenges and opportunities in Vietnam. And for that purpose, we would like to present a video. Please.
Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu, hôm nay tôi rất vui mừng khi được tham dự và phát biểu tại sự kiện cấp bộ trưởng của Hội đồng chuyển dịch năng lượng trong ngày năng lượng của hội nghị COP26. Tôi xin được gửi tới các quý vị lời chúc sức khỏe, chúc hội nghị của chúng ta thành công tốt đẹp. Kính thưa các quý vị, những năm qua, Việt Nam là một quốc gia có tốc độ tăng trưởng kinh tế nhanh trong khu vực ASEAN và hiện đang hướng tới cơ cấu lại nền kinh tế gắn với đổi mới mô hình tăng trưởng nhằm đạt được thịnh vượng về kinh tế, bền vững về môi trường và công bằng về xã hội. Đây là thời điểm để Việt Nam xem xét đến cách thức chuyển đổi cơ cấu nguồn năng lượng theo hướng sử dụng nhiều hơn nguồn năng lượng tái tạo, đi đôi với việc sử dụng năng lượng tiết kiệm và hiệu quả. Cách thức chuyển đổi cơ cấu năng lượng như vậy không những đóng góp nâng cao chất lượng dịch vụ của năng lượng mà còn tạo thêm nhiều công ăn việc làm và tiếp tục đóng góp cho sự phát triển kinh tế của đất nước. Nhận thức rõ nỗ lực của từng quốc gia có vai trò quyết định trong việc giảm phát thải ở từng khu vực cũng như trên toàn cầu. Tháng 7 năm 2020, Chính phủ Việt Nam đã đệ trình báo cáo cập nhật NDC. Theo đó, thì Việt Nam cam kết cắt giảm 9% tổng phát thải nhà kính với nguồn lực quốc gia và có khả năng cắt giảm đến 27% nếu có sự hỗ trợ của cộng đồng quốc tế. Thực tiễn phát triển năng lượng tại Việt Nam thời gian vừa qua đã cho thấy mục tiêu bảo đảm an ninh năng lượng quốc gia còn rất nhiều thách thức. Các nguồn năng lượng trong nước không đủ đáp ứng yêu cầu cơ cấu nguồn thì đang bị mất cân đối. Sự phụ thuộc vào nhập khẩu năng lượng tại Việt Nam ngày càng lớn. Đứng trước các khó khăn về bảo đảm nhu cầu năng lượng cho phát triển kinh tế xã hội, việc chú trọng chuyển dịch năng lượng, bảo đảm an ninh năng lượng quốc gia, tiến dần tới việc phát triển năng lượng bền vững, đáp ứng các cam kết quốc tế về biến đổi khí hậu được xác định là mục tiêu then chốt và xuyên suốt trong chiến lược phát triển của Việt Nam. Ngày 1 tháng 10 năm 2021, Thủ tướng Chính phủ của Việt Nam đã ban hành quyết định 1658 phê duyệt chiến lược quốc gia về tăng trưởng xanh giai đoạn 2021-2030 và tầm nhìn đến năm 2050. Trong đó đã định hướng nâng cao hiệu suất và hiệu quả sử dụng năng lượng, giảm mức tiêu hao năng lượng trong hoạt động sản xuất, vận tải, thương mại và công nghiệp, bảo đảm an ninh năng lượng quốc gia theo hướng phát triển đồng bộ các nguồn năng lượng, khai thác và sử dụng tiết kiệm các nguồn năng lượng trong nước và chuyển đổi cơ cấu nguồn năng lượng theo hướng giảm sự phụ thuộc vào năng lượng hóa thạch, đẩy mạnh khai thác có hiệu quả và tăng tỷ trọng các nguồn năng lượng tái tạo, năng lượng mới trong sản xuất và tiêu thụ năng lượng của quốc gia. Hiện nay, Bộ Công Thương đang được Chính phủ giao và trình phê duyệt quy hoạch phát triển điện lực quốc gia thời kỳ 2021-2030, tầm nhìn đến năm 2045 mà quen gọi là quy hoạch điện 8. Với những ưu tiên thúc đẩy mạnh mẽ sử dụng các nguồn năng lượng sạch, hạn chế tối đa nguồn năng lượng hóa thạch nhằm giảm tác động tới môi trường. Tuy nhiên, các nhà máy nhiệt điện than hiện nay vẫn là nguồn cung cấp điện quan trọng cho Việt Nam, nên tiến trình giảm dần các nhà máy nhiệt điện than cũng cần có lộ trình phù hợp. Theo tính toán, tỷ lệ các nhà máy nhiệt điện than của Việt Nam sẽ giảm dần xuống mức còn khoảng 30% vào năm 2030. Nhiệt điện than sẽ dần được thay thế và thay bằng các nguồn điện khí hóa lỏng hoặc các nguồn điện năng lượng tái tạo thân thiện hơn với môi trường. Các nhà máy điện sử dụng khí dự kiến chiếm khoảng 27 đến 28% tổng công suất nguồn điện vào năm 2030. Thêm vào đó, Việt Nam đang đẩy mạnh khai thác và sử dụng các nguồn năng lượng tái tạo thay thế các nguồn điện truyền thống. Dự kiến tới năm 2030, năng lượng tái tạo sẽ chiếm tỷ lệ khoảng 15 đến 20% tổng cung năng lượng sơ cấp. Trong đó, các dự án điện gió, điện mặt trời sẽ chiếm tỷ lệ lớn. Các chương trình quốc gia về sử dụng năng lượng tiết kiệm hiệu quả mà chúng tôi đã và đang tích cực thực hiện cũng góp phần vào sự thành công của quá trình chuyển dịch năng lượng tại Việt Nam. Chúng tôi hướng tới mục tiêu tỷ lệ tiết kiệm năng lượng trên tổng tiêu thụ năng lượng cuối cùng so với kịch bản phát triển bình thường đạt khoảng 7% vào năm 2030 và khoảng 14% vào năm 2045. Giảm phát thải nhà kính từ hoạt động năng lượng so với kịch bản phát triển bình thường 15% vào năm 2030 và lên tới mức khoảng 20% vào năm 2045. Các kế hoạch chuyển đổi năng lượng cũng cần phù hợp với điều kiện kinh tế của Việt Nam là nước có thu nhập bình quân ở mức trung bình. Quá trình chuyển dịch năng lượng đòi hỏi đổi mới công nghệ sản xuất, vận chuyển và sử dụng năng lượng với yêu cầu nguồn vốn đầu tư lớn và nguồn nhân lực chất lượng cao. Vì vậy, chúng tôi cũng cần cân nhắc yếu tố trọng tâm là bảo đảm an ninh năng lượng quốc gia và các nguồn lực có thể thu xếp được để triển khai trên thực tế. Chúng tôi rất mong muốn tiếp tục nhận được sự hỗ trợ từ các tổ chức quốc tế, các quốc gia đối tác trong quá trình thực hiện chuyển dịch năng lượng tại Việt Nam. Hy vọng với những giải pháp trong nước và sự giúp đỡ của cộng đồng quốc tế, ngành năng lượng Việt Nam sẽ đạt được chuyển đổi mạnh mẽ theo hướng bền vững và thân thiện với môi trường. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn quý vị.
We're very grateful to the Minister for this intervention, and thank you for sharing the recording. The next speaker on this topic is Ms. Nguyen Ngo. She's the Executive Director for the Vietnam Initiative for Energy Transition, short VIET, the first think tank in Vietnam that specialized in energy transition policy and climate protection. If you allow me, Ms. Ngo, I'd like to ask you, can Vietnam increase its ambition regarding its NDC? What should be the major role of development partners and ETP in addressing the challenges of energy transition in Vietnam? The floor is yours, Ms. Ngo.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for your exciting and insightful questions. So big thanks to inviting me to this talk, and it's great pleasure to be here today. So as you know, in the previous speech from the Minister Nguyễn Hồng Diên, Vietnam has been one of the first 20 countries to submit the updated NDC in July 2020, in which the government commits an emission reduction of 9% compared to the bound, which only domestic resource, and up to 27% with the international support in 2030. Among the total national emission of 927 million tons CO2 equivalent in 2030, and 73% is accounted for the whole energy sector, in which the power sector is the largest emitter, accounting for about half of the country's total emission by 2030. And therefore, it is one of the most focused sector for the mitigation efforts. In the first part of the high-level agreement for the heads of state and government at the COP26 on 1st of November, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính insisted that implementing the Paris Agreement would require significant global efforts, despite being an emerging country. Vietnam will be racing towards carbon neutral goals by aiming for an ambitious net zero emission by 2050, and accompanied technical and finance support from the developed country and international donors for this sustainable and reliable energy transition. This ambitious covers the whole economy that should move toward a global change of decarbonizing all related sectors. So if we look at only the power sector, the most significant emission contributor in Vietnam, during the last 3 years, the country has gained substantial momentum in transition toward cleaner production, with the domestic increase in renewable energy, especially solar and green power, making Vietnam a leading market in Southeast Asia in the renewable energy development, with about 25% of total installed capacity of the power system, equal to 17 gigawatts in 2020. And by the end of last month, October 2021, it's nearly 4 gigawatts of onshore wind has been additionally connected to the national grid, increasing the share of the renewable energy as 28% of the total capacity. Despite such impressive progress, there are challenges which the sector has to overcome to accelerate the energy transition process sustainably and reliably. This challenge include variable renewable energy integration, reduce the use of coal, and increase the energy efficiency. So the question is, can Vietnam increase its ambition regarding its NDC? And the answer is yes, but how we can look forward in the next 10 years and toward 2050. So acting as the independent think tank in Vietnam, our research-based research is showing that Vietnamese power sector is technically feasible in contributing to the higher carbonization while still balancing between the energy security and climate targets, which is translated by the emission reduction of 60% emission compared to the NDC goal in 2030. Our analysis show that reaching net zero by 2050 is the most relevant alternative scenario for the rapid transition from coal power plants to renewable energy. And it's also helped to improve the nation's energy security by reducing dependency on the power generation from the imported resource. So since Vietnam already has imported coal to produce electricity from 2015, the more we develop renewable energy is the best for the system actually. But we need to have consider the scenarios that we propose is require increase of 30 billion USD in investment cost compared to the draft PDP-8 in the period 2021 to 2030. So that it can help from the Minister DNP in periods speak. This additional cost could include the investment cost for additional renewable energy, as mentioned earlier, storage solution like a battery or hydro pump, or like grid infrastructure upgrade and improve the energy efficiency. So the question on how the development partner could support Vietnam, like the Etp, then we see that the Etp and other development partners could play an essential role in the overarching the challenge of the energy transition in Vietnam. For example, the Etp has been leading and financing the rapid response study activity in the short term and setting technical existing activity in the long term for Vietnam, support the decision-making process toward targeted commitment. More recently, Etp has been supported the Ministry of Industry and Trade on long-term roadmap for decarbonizing the power sector in Vietnam. However, I think further support could be addressed under the Etp strategic activity, such as study the establishment of the new finance mechanism to mobilize the finance and investment for the energy sector. And under the framework of the regional activity, we think that further research on bilateral or multi-activity in the power trading within the ASEAN power grid network for an emerging market like as Vietnam, while having increased power demand for the social economic development is one of the critical elements for the sustainable and reliable energy transition. But we think science-based evidence is a critical element to accelerate the sustainable and reliable energy transition. So we share our opinion with the Etp leader and strong support for the Etp activity in Vietnam. We believe the contribution from the Etp could contribute to support Vietnam and other ASEAN countries in the long term of the energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. No. We really appreciate your insight and the key interventions. Our focus will now shift to the Philippines. Our next speaker, we're very excited to have Attorney Felix William Fuentebella. Mr. Fuentebella is the Undersecretary for Planning, Renewable Energy, Power, Investment, Media Affairs, and also the spokesperson at the Department of Energy in the Philippines. Today, he will guide us on energy transition challenges and opportunities in the Philippines. And I believe there is a presentation that we have that you have prepared. And allow me to ask the question, Undersecretary. Given the challenges and opportunities in the Philippines to implement energy transition, how are you making best use of external resources? Floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We make use of the available resources. We maximize our resources through our partnership with ETP. We have Sirpa here, whom I have just met personally, but it seems that we have been long friends because of the numerous Zoom meetings that we have held. And we are integrating, coming up with a framework in that partnership, integrating energy efficiency and renewable energy into our system to make it more protective to our consumers. We wanted to make it available at a lower price with very reliable systems. And at the same time, we have to communicate it properly with all our investors and other partners globally. So I'm privileged to be with Dr. Dadan Kusdiana here from Indonesia and to the speakers in Vietnam. We thank ETP for this partnership and this opportunity because the Philippines is a private sector-led energy industry. The Department of Energy controls all the plans and comes up with policies. But in the end, since it is private sector-led, we need to explain to the consumers what is at stake. And thus, we have these three hashtags that we are presenting. The first one is ePower Mo, that discusses energy safety, energy security, and energy options. Discarte is a Filipino word for options. The second level is we have the energy ability because we aim to have organizations to really organize and come up with a movement towards enerhiyang atin, which is energy independence and basically protecting our consumers. So that being said, we also have to look into climate change, what's happening around the world, because the Philippines is experiencing very strong typhoons. You have heard about Typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda in our language. The name is Yolanda for that big typhoon that hit Leyte, and we really experienced that. And there were also two typhoons that came in, and we were more prepared. But the resiliency of the energy system is very important. And we know that global warming is really affecting everything that we do from all sectors. That's why we need to come up with national adaptation plans, which also affects the energy sector. So that being the case, we also have to come up with a plan, taking note that Sustainable Development Goal 7 is affecting all the other sustainable development goals. So it affects all, and so we should be very careful and very accurate in our reporting. That is why in our meetings with SIRPA, we are determining if we reach a certain percentage of renewables by 35% by 2030 or 50% by 2040. How will that have an overall impact on our GHG emission? Because even if we have a big mix of RE, what if we have more coal or more nat gas into our system? So it's a tough call that really makes sure that we are like using the GPS, global positioning system, that every move is really towards that goal. And so the secretary has this very simple formula, our Secretary of Energy, Secretary Kusi. Because President Duterte, in his 2018 or 2019 State of the Nation address, directed the Department of Energy to really accelerate the use of renewable energy. And it's not RE alone, because what we see is from the business as usual or the everyday experience or work that we do, we should first exercise energy efficiency. Even if we talk about our corporations, our homes, or our schools, or our offices, energy efficiency comes first. disciplined behavior, proper purchasing of appliances and monitoring of the same. And from there, we examine the demand, do proper forecasting, and then invest in RE, whether it's own use or it will be into the system. From the RE, we introduce also other energy technologies like batteries, because RE cannot do it alone. It should be in a mix, and they had to talk to each other. So information communication technology also comes in. And because we're already experiencing the impact of climate change, resiliency is very important. So we have to have a resilient system, and that is all embodied in our Philippine Energy Plan, which is going towards security, sustainability, and towards our Ambition 2040, which is the Philippine Development Plan. That is the um, Bible that is being worked on by the NEDA, the economic planning body of our country. So for energy conservation, we have a lot of rules that we are doing. Um, we have campaigners, good-looking people, telling people how to conserve energy. And the serious people, the ones who are implementing it, is an interagency committee. We also have requirements for submissions for consumption, because aside from surveys, there should be actual data that we are looking into. We also, it's okay. It's okay. So we also have the appliances. How do we guide consumers? So 5-star for energy efficient appliances, 1-star for the least ones, but probably they're the ones that are cheap. So it's really a power of choice for looking into having a manager as well. You have to have energy managers for corporations. So the building design, we also have that in the Philippines. We also have a framework for fuel economy and very efficient running of transportation. We also have accredited energy service companies and government. This is not voluntary. Government must implement energy efficiency. And for 2020, with the directions from the President Duterte, we have already the impact of our savings. So for renewables, the renewable energy plan targets 35% into the mix power mix by 2030 and 50% by 2040. So it's supported by targets that we have in the National Renewable Energy Program. We have a partnership with the National Renewable Energy Board, which is a multi-stakeholder body. So we have a lot of updates for SERPA to study. They're divided into mandatory and voluntary programs. But what we are showing here are the support mechanisms from feed-in tariff, from net metering, which are voluntary, from the Green Energy Option Program, because we allow 100 kilowatt users of energy capacity to choose renewables aside from the purchasing being done by the distribution utility. So we also have the quota for the distribution utilities, and these are called the Renewable Portfolio Standard. This is mandatory. So this is a combination of what we are doing, and we are supporting it with a green energy auction policy, aside from all the islands that we have to address. So we enable our companies to trade renewable energy certificates. 1 megawatt is 1 point for you. So I'll give you, Sirpa, a certificate, a renewable energy certificate that you can trade in our renewable energy market. So that's how it is. We have other energy technologies and ICT coming in. So this is very important, resiliency. It's very difficult to come up with a national adaptation plan. So we divided it into 4 major areas. How do we strengthen our infrastructure? How do we build back better? How do we operationalize our systems and share the best practices? And how do we have better standards? And for all these, we require stakeholders to submit their practices. And the policy was issued last 2018. Every 3 years, we compile into these four major areas, and we come out with better policies because we have to address our adaptation plan and the resiliency of the country. So that's the target, a clean energy scenario for the country. It's tough. Our numbers here should improve. This is 2021 COP26, so by COP27, we should see an improvement in our numbers. And ETP should be there with our continued partnership to monitor if we are accurate, if we are on track, and to guide us, to guide each other on how we accomplish this common goal.
Thank you so much, Undersecretary, for these key interventions. We appreciate your time. Our next speaker, also for the Philippines, will be Dr. Lloyd Bautista. He's a researcher and a lecturer at the Ateneo School of Governance. There, he works as a policy and management consultant regarding various government agencies and legislative bodies. He also oversees various consultancy projects with multilateral donors. Dr. Lloyd, my question for you would be, given the ambitious NDC target, how do you see international resources best utilized to generate the desired NDC outcomes? Dr. Lloyd, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed Undersecretary Wimpy Fontabella, sir, I hope you're enjoying your stay in Glasgow, Scotland now. But that question is very relevant in considering that a decade ago, when we talk about the reduction of greenhouse gas emission in the Philippines, it has always been a push and pull among different sectors, business, civil society. But I think Undersecretary Fontabella would agree with me right now that today in the Philippines, there is a general consensus that we need to move forward, and many sectors, including the academe where I belong, are working with people like SERPA in terms of how we can help meet the country's nationally determined contribution of 75%, one of the most ambitious targets when it comes to greenhouse gas emission reduction in Southeast Asian region. And the government, in all fairness, have actually pushed for this energy transition agenda. We talk about consumer behavior, where we address the demand side management, as Undersecretary Fontabella mentioned, that we intend to reduce by 10% government consumption in electricity. We are also promoting energy sustainable practices in terms of changing the market behavior. Businesses are actually pushing for green financing to support renewable green projects. Across all civil society groups, there is a growing crescendo that we really need to shift towards a zero carbon economy. One of the plans right now, one of the most ambitious plans right now for us is to retire coal-fired power plants through our banking system and to make these big businesses commit that they're going to divest and shift to renewables. And we have big companies right now, and Yusek Fontabella can attest to this, that are really on the verge of embracing renewables, because we all know that time is running out and all sectors must be impelled with a sense of urgency. We talk about financing. As of October 2021, there is a cumulative ASEAN green bonds amounting to 16.4 billion. And just to reveal this to you, 30% of those bonds are coming from the Philippine companies. We've actually issued 4.8 billion in terms of sustainable bonds. And three-fourths of those bonds are dedicated to renewable energy projects and energy efficiency programs. So a lot of this energy transition hinges on green financing and most especially technical assistance and funding support of multilateral agency. Just a case in point, we're closely working with the ETP Surplus Group, with USEC Fontebella, in terms of governance frameworks for our transmission grids. We're doing measures and monitoring of NDC performance using data analytics, and we intend to strengthen our regulatory policies to create that right environment for ancillary services. And these are all pathways for us to achieve the 75% NDC commitment and also 35% share of renewable energy by 2030. And as Yusef Fontebella mentioned, 50% by 2040. So we need the support, we need the cooperation of multilateral agency, which can further strengthen and harmonize the different initiatives to accelerate the country's energy transition. But take note, there are so many funding and support, and we need to harmonize. We need to align all those efforts and streamline and reduce redundancies. I just like to mention that our energy transition program underscores energy justice. In the Philippines, 2 out of 10 Filipinos fall below the poverty line, and they're the most vulnerable when it comes to climate change-induced disasters and calamities. We've mentioned about Haiyan, which damaged the poorest of the poor, the marginalized. When we pursue energy transition, we pursue it in terms of alleviating 20% of our population, which falls under the poverty line. There's so much potential in the Philippines, and I'm not bragging about this. We have 170 gigawatt of renewable energy potential, and I'm talking about solar, wind, tidal, marine. These are all there in the Philippines, and we are blessed with these natural resources. Ladies and gentlemen, there's so much challenge among us right now in this generation. And for our generation, those who were born in the 60s and 70s, let me end this conversation with a poem of Dylan Thomas. And he said, "Do not go gently into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of the day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." This is Dr. Lloyd from Manila. Thank you for your invitation. Thank you very much.
Dr. Lloyd, thank you very much for your comments, and greetings to Manila. Thank you. We will now turn our attention to Indonesia, and we are very honored to welcome Papa Dadan Kusdiana. He serves as Director General of New Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation, as well as Acting Head of the Research and Development Agency within the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Director General, if I may ask you, what are the greatest challenges for Indonesia to achieve its low carbon targets? What are your expectations regarding external assistance, such as the ETP? The floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
For the invitation to the... Is it on already? Okay, thank you. Good morning. Really appreciate for the invitation from the UNOPS ETP. Nice to see you again, Sherpa. I will be here also with my colleague from PT SMI that is dealing with the financing of the clean energy. Well, to answer your question, I will start. Do I have the slide or? Okay, thank you. Next. Is it for me?
Just try press that. That's one. Try it.
Okay. And then really appreciate to start with the other countries of our member ASEAN, from Philippines and Vietnam. We see that this is the very emerging region in the world probably of the ASEAN member countries, and we see that development of the growth of the economic is quite good so far up to the before pandemic, and I think we are now recovering for all countries in the members state of the ASEAN. What happened? Yeah, actually within ASEAN we have already the benchmark, yeah, for the cooperation. In particular for power, we have the ASEAN Power Grid. It works already. There are electricity already exported from the Laos to Singapore, to the uh, 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 Thailand and also Malaysia. Last week, our Minister also witnessed the MOU to sign the cooperation between Indonesia and Singapore. Again, this is also to export the electricity from solar from Indonesia to Singapore. So if you ask me what is the external cooperation, this will be, I think, the partnership. We understand that every region will have different capacity, will have different demand, will have different availability for development of the clean energy. So by cooperating each other, partnership between ASEAN member countries, which is actually already in the agreement that we are targeting to have 20%. This is within the region, yeah, 20% in 2025. Again, this is also 23% for us in Indonesia for renewable energy mix in 2025. If we go to Indonesia situation, I mean, President Joko Widodo has mentioned in many events that, of course, we are still committing to reach the 29% that we have committed into the Paris Agreement. We have submitted the updated of NDC last July to the UNFCCC with the increased ambition for the, if we have the support, if we can increase the collaboration, cooperation with others, including, of course, with this current cooperation with the UNOP. So we'll start with the increasing renewable energy in this part. And of course, we are reducing the share of the fossil energy. The president has made commitment also to the early retirement of the coal-fired power plant. We are targeting to have the net zero emission in 2060 or earlier with the support of the international institution. We also with my colleagues are also from Philippines, and we have also launched the carbon tax on this. Currently, we are working for the carbon trading, how to work to connect between tax and also the trading of the carbon within the country. But we have seen some other countries in the region, also Singapore, and we heard now is from the Philippines. Yes, there will be no new coal-fired power plant will be permitted to build. But yes, we have some already in the construction. We have some already in the financial close. This will be honored to go, but we will not provide the new permission from the coal-fired power plant. And even we are trying to do the early retirement. We work with the World Bank. We work with the ADB in particular to see how we can go earlier for the retirement of coal-fired power plant. We have such ambition to have this very soon. We will be the G20 presidency next year, so we'll do many things to show to the world that we are committing for that earlier retirement of the coal-fired power plant. Of course, there are also initiatives, I think, as others also, electric vehicle, increasing the use of electric for the household, for the industrial sector, for transportation. For us, this will be very difficult. And what I've been here since the first day, then I think the issue on how then on the demand side can also do the acceleration for the decarbonization. We must we are talking only in the supply side, how to produce renewable energy, how to have the clean energy, but then we have to deal also with the transportation. How then we can convert that we use mostly in in Indonesia probably around 90% coming from the fossil fuel. We have used 30% of biodiesel, put it into the diesel fuel, and it has been run for all of the countries since 2 years ago. Of course, I think the issue in technology, this is also the one that I would like to invite also cooperation, collaboration. Yesterday, NRJ within the US DOE of United States also offering the program on how to cooperate in terms of the new technology for us, for example, carbon capture storage. This is also will be another interesting aspect. Yeah. In addition to speed up the implementation of the clean energy supply as well as also the clean energy demand on this. The utilization, as mentioned by my colleague, Felix from Philippines, demand side is also very important to us. The energy efficiency, management energy in industry and also in building and also for the household. I think since the time is quite limited, I will jump into the next slide here just to see how then Indonesia is going to the net zero emission in 2060 or earlier. Yeah. So we start with some roadmap here. We will do the increase of the renewable energy up to 23% in 2025. And then will be follow with the no new fossil fuel for after 2013 in the implementation for the renewable energy, I mean. So for the electricity, and then it will continue with many initiatives coming from the implementation of the electric vehicle, electrification of the equipment from industry, household, buildings, commercial, and from time to time we will increase the share of renewable energy to be 93% in 2050. Of course, this is huge challenge for us, but we have many renewable energy resources in the country. So far, based on our survey, we have already more than 600 gigawatt. In terms of the resources, we are, I think, the country in the second largest in terms of the geothermal. We have also sharing this kind of resources with the Philippines. We have huge resources on hydro. Of course, I think for solar, because we are in the tropical region. So yes, by this then we will be free from the coal for the electricity production in 2054. So we have many cooperation on the web. We have cooperation with UK. We have been supported with US, and now with UNOPS ATP. By this, I think, by partnership, by collaboration, by cooperation, we are not looking into the grant, but only. But we are looking how to develop the cooperation in much more sustainable way, also to have more jobs in the country, because the energy transition that we have to do is as a just energy transition. So by this, I would like to conclude my remarks on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Papa Dadan. We certainly appreciate these interventions and have taken good note of it as well. Our second speaker from Indonesia is Mr. Edwin Syahruzad, the President Director of PT Sarana Multi-Infrastruktur, which is also an IDFC member and provides infrastructure financial services. Under his leadership and strategic vision, the company offers financing, investment, advisory, and project development services. Our question for Pa Edwin today is, the international donor community is ready to support Indonesia's energy transition ambition. How does coordination play a role in accelerating Indonesia's transition to a cleaner energy system? The floor is yours, Pa.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for the question. Very good morning for all of you in Glasgow, and special regards to Pa Dadan and all my colleagues over there. I think thank you for the questions, and I think in my view, energy transition should be conducted in a just and affordable way. As Pak Dadan has mentioned, the roadmap toward that direction. Of course, PTSMI as a development financial institution are very committed in supporting that goals. Of course, first of all, we are preparing some pipelines on the ground, of course, with the support with the Ministry of Finance and Pak Dadan. I think we are always work in tandem to create a bankable green projects that can be offered to the private to accelerate green or the energy transition. So our role as a project development facility is very critical in this context, and for that reason we work very closely with our development partners, donors, as well as philanthropy, in trying to de-risk projects within the context of the energy transition itself. I think Indonesia is very blessed with the huge resources, whether it is geothermal resources, solar, as well as wind resources. But I think the readiness of the project is remain our challenge, and for that reason, I think we try to provide a solution to be able to unlock this huge potential into a doable and a bankable investment which support the energy transition itself. Last but not least, I think PTSMI has already created a blended finance platform, the SDG Indonesia One. This is something very critical and very challenging for us to leverage our close connection with our development partners, as well as multilateral and philanthropies. And this is going to be quite important, I think, for the success of the how can we unlock the huge potential of our renewable energy investment become the reality in Indonesia. And within that context, I think we can also support the government to achieve the target of NDC in line with the commitment in the COP in the COP19. I think we are always welcome the support from the donors, philanthropy, and as a nation with large population and large area, the program that can create a better investment climate for Indonesia would be, I think, the things that make Indonesia energy transition complete within the target. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pa Edwin, for sharing your expertise, and greetings to Jakarta. We're now moving to the development partner discussion agenda item. And for this, we're very happy to welcome Mr. Simon Roland. Simon is an energy program director for GIZ and also serves as director of the Clean, Affordable and Secure Energy Program in Southeast Asia, also known as CASE. Simon today will discuss the international cooperation in supporting the energy transition in Southeast Asia, the IKI CASE approach. Simon, the question we have for you today is, the country discussion gave us an overview of the barriers but they also presented us with opportunities. How can we enhance the role of international cooperation in supporting the region? The floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Marcus, thank you so much. Thank you also to the ETP for the invitation. I thought the whole event was super interesting. And indeed, I'm really happy to share some thoughts when it comes to the international cooperation dimension of this discussion. I think actually today I'd like to focus my intervention not really on the importance of international cooperation and finance, which I think has been addressed in many different fora and is addressed in many different fora, in particular in COP26, but rather on how to make our support more efficient and more impactful based on my experience, but also on the solutions which were adopted by the CASE program that you described so kindly, and some of which are, I believe, really innovative. So I think regardless of the type of aid and instrument we use, loan, grant, TA support, there are three key factors which are, in my view, essential in ensuring that our support is both efficient and impactful. First of all, and probably, of course, most importantly, ownership. Although I think everyone agrees that international support should be first and foremost driven by the needs and requests from the recipient, in reality, we also know that this does remain a challenge in some cases. A good example is the general push for net zero and coal phase out. Of course, not questioning the relevance of the initiative, which has some political purposes, not the importance of the theme. But these initiatives are often perceived as top-down and sometimes fail to capture holistically the challenges faced by the countries, their competing priorities, and by doing so may ignore at times more sustainable ways, options to tackle the challenges related to climate change. How do we, as CASE, tackle this? So I think, first of all, GIZ and BMU projects are always embedded into government structures. And this is the case in the 4 countries we're active in: Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. And it is always implemented jointly with the political partners, some of which are represented today. And this is, of course, not a guarantee of success, and it's not an easy process. It requires a trust to be built and a real culture of cooperation. However, we found that it is the best way to capture the needs of stakeholders and to adapt the support to the priorities of the government. Second, CASE is largely built on a strong network of local think tanks in our 4 partner countries. And I'm actually pleased to see that Ms. Nguyen from Viet is here today, and she's one of our esteemed colleagues in CASE. And this is very important to make sure the local understanding and the priorities are reflected into our work. Although such a constellation of partners does require a lot of coordination efforts, we find it extremely valuable to strengthen the relevance of our work to the country needs and priorities. If you look, for instance, at the excellent publication prepared by CASE for COP26, Beyond Net Zero, Empowering Climate Mitigation by Linking to Development Goal, it is an excellent example of such a cooperation work, which really integrates local vision with international priorities and vice versa. However, we also know that strong ownership does not answer to all questions, in particular when expectations of government and donors diverge significantly. This is, for instance, sometimes the case when it comes to climate action, as we all know. And that brings me to my second point, which is the alignment of perspective. This aspect is probably one of the most important characteristics of the CASE program, which aim in general at supporting the development of a different power sector narrative towards evidence-based decision in the energy sector in Southeast Asia. CASE is using what we call a joint fine-funding approach that involves expert analysis and dialogues with government to work towards consensus by converging areas of disagreement. What does that mean? In short, dialogues allow us to identify where divergent opinion lies, and through research and capacity support, it allows to identify the project. It allows the project to equip the decision makers with the answers to their challenges. Progressively, the divergences are eliminated, and tailor-made approach are developed jointly with a partner. Of course, it is not the only element we use to drive narrative change, but it is an element which in my view is sometimes not sufficiently considered in technical assistance and research intervention. Last but not least, and this is a topic I we exchange very regularly about with Sirpa and Marcus is donor coordination. Anyone working in Southeast Asia in the field of energy knows that the multiplication of support, although of course overall beneficial to the country, often generates both confusions, in particular on the recipient side, and inefficiencies. And in the context of limited public resources, that means that activities are often duplicating, synergies are not sufficiently utilized, and lessons learned from successes and failure are not sufficiently used. How do we as CASE support this? Through stakeholder engagement, first of all, and the development of digital tools gathered in the Southeast Asia Information Platform on Energy Transition, or CPET, which aims to strengthen exchange of knowledge, activity identification, and donor coordination. So this is actually under development and should be launched early next year. And it will map out who does what and where, allow the identification of duplication, of synergies and gaps, facilitate exchange of information, and support linking needs with intervention. We have been consulting lately with a lot of stakeholders on this platform and received a lot of interesting and positive feedback. And we would like to encourage all of you to participate in this effort and to make use of this facility when it will be launched. Coordination supported by CASE extend to the various countries where we striving to engage with all relevant stakeholders, but it is also very relevant, of course, with our host energy transition partnership. Although complex in nature, ETP, which combines donor impact program as well as funds, own funds, which allows for flexible offers, could become an excellent example of integrated and systemic donor coordination. We are hopeful it will represent a big step forward to channel and coordinate efficient support to where it is the most needed. Of course, coordination will not be enough without ownership and perspective alignment, and we believe that's where CASE and other programs can add value to the coordination structure that ETP is setting up. In my view, those are the three key elements that we should aim at, but it's also work in progress. It's always work in progress with dialogue, with feedback, with our partners in the different countries. And I would like to conclude my intervention to also invite you to join to our own side event, which is organized at the German Pavilion in a couple of hours, if you'd like to hear more insight from CASE. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you very much, Simon. And we do look forward to seeing you in Bangkok again. Thank you for your interventions, and we'll be sure to visit the upcoming event as well. Thank you. We have now come to the final stage of this session. Let me now invite Ms. Sirpa Yarvempa, the Fund Director of the Energy Transition Partnership. She has an extensive background in development, finance, and infrastructure. And today she will provide a summary of today's interventions and deliver the session's closing remarks. Sirpa, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you. Thank you, our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much. It's a very rich discussion. So as everyone knows by now, ETP is a multi-stakeholder partnership involving philanthropies and government parties. Our current membership involves the governments of France, Germany, United Kingdom, and Canada, as well as philanthropies, including Children's Investment Fund Foundation, Sequoia Climate Fund, and the IKEA Climate Foundation, and many other foundations. ETP works through technical assistance like Simon made reference to, and we really want to focus on the critical barriers to energy transition. We don't work alone. We work together with aligned programs such as CASE and others, and we invite other aligned programs to join us. We consider these aligned programs as sister programs, and we reinforce each other's goals and objectives and programs. In terms of our own strategic goals, we work towards breaking through those barriers that I mentioned. In the policy front, we want to see policies seek greater alignment with the climate commitments, including on the coal phase-out issues and early retirement. We want to see de-risking of finance for energy efficiency and renewable energy investments. We work on grid modernization, extending smart grids, and also knowledge and awareness programs. So I probably can't do justice to summarize the conversation here, but I just highlight key messages. So first of all, I want to congratulate Vietnam for their statement about the carbon neutral energy system by 2060. And I also want to 2050. And also want to mention that the Prime Minister of Vietnam said that they will not trade development for environment. And that's really inspiring for many of us that are working on especially the coal retirement that then Ms. Nguyen Nho came to when we asked her about whether the ambition for the NDC can be increased, and she felt yes, indeed, but we do have to look at the infrastructure side of it. We need to look at the grid so that we can make space for renewable energy, particularly variable renewable energy. Undersecretary Wimpy, thank you so much for being with us here, and thank you for your kind remarks. We work with you on all those interesting and beautiful and intricate plans that you have. We are ready to support you with implementation, and we are happy to hear that you think that ambition can be raised through the clean energy scenario. Dr. Lloyd, of course, always makes a powerful speech, and we really do appreciate how much that country has been vulnerable and affected by climate-related risks. And I have personally been present when I have seen super typhoons in the country, and it's not a pretty sight. So thank you, Dr. Lloyd. Director General Dadan, you elaborated on Indonesia's comments on working on a retirement of the current fleet of coal-fired power plants. Again, we want to be present there to support you with everything we have. This is very important. We want to get there with you on the goal of coal-free Indonesia by 2054. So beautiful targets that we want to really turn into reality. And by Edwin, I hope that we can begin collaboration with your organization and together move towards greater collaboration and coordination of international support for Indonesia. Simon rightly amplified the imperative of collaboration and coordination, and indeed we are working on CIP-ET together so that we can support collaboration in each of the countries where we operate. Now, Elizabeth McKinnon didn't make it today, and I hope that she is well, but she did send us the speaking points. She is very concerned about Indonesian environment, and she amplified the need to accelerate energy transition there. She pointed out that the more donors and philanthropies work together with governments, the more long-term investments in programs can be made to help achieve Indonesia's climate action targets. So ETP has been built as a multi-stakeholder platform where the target is to enhance collaboration, reduce duplication, overlaps, and gaps. We want to see these high-caliber outcomes generate benefits for our countries and also our donors. We want to remove the bureaucracy. We want to be very directed. We have a very speedy decision-making, and this is what our partnership is calling for from us. That's where the benefits of partnership between public and private really come to fruition. And I also want to mention that while we are very directed and while we want to take speedy decisions and push through technical and financial and other barriers to energy transition, we need to also be inclusive, and we need to take into account those stakeholders that might be standing to lose from energy transition. So together with the World Bank, we are preparing an Asian just transition platform that will codify and assess the stakeholders' needs so that we can prepare right-sized and tailored support for stakeholders that need to move into other industries from the ones that are being reduced. So our ETP chair, Manelle Ait Sahlia, highlighted the early results of ETP and also pointed out how important it is that a partnership like this is receiving lots of attention, including in places like COP, and we invite new membership into our ranks of members so as to build greater diversity in our membership and expand our networks. I also want to acknowledge here for the early results that we have achieved, our ETP team and the steering committee of our funders who are committed to this unencumbered decision making and urgency and to take rapid action on addressing the impediments to energy transition. Our chair talked about how unique is this partnership and why countries and philanthropists want to join a partnership like this. Well, of course, I already mentioned the networks that each of the members bring into the partnership, so we capitalize on that. We have greater voice when we work together to influence those that are not yet converted toward energy transition. We also, of course, coordinate. Simon made that very important point, and we take that on board. We reduce transaction costs when we work together. And we have a very strong local anchoring in our business model. And the neutrality and transparency benefits should not go unnoticed that the operating under the UN flag give to us. So the value addition and the fiduciary controls that come from operating under the UN rule book and procurement and competitiveness are very, very appreciated by our countries of operation. Multi-stakeholder partnership like this can also work, let's say, so to speak, under the radar on sensitive issues. So we are currently, for instance, working in Vietnam on coal abatement scenarios. And we have real dialogue ongoing right now, which were made also public through the Vietnam Prime Minister's statements earlier in the meeting here. So again, I invite new members to look at ETP. And this gives me a chance also to thank again our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much. You have enriched our agenda. We have a lot to study, as you said, sir. And I just want to ask everyone to join me in a big hand to our panelists. Appreciate your presence here. And thank you, audience, also to be with us. And please leave your calling card so we can stay in touch and talk to you more about our collaboration. So thanks to the ETP team also in behind the scenes, as well as Markus for your moderation. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. We'll see you soon.